In 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And welcome everyone to this episode of the Real Leaders Podcast. Welcome everyone to this episode of the Real Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Owers. Joining us today is James Thomas. He's the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at my favorite airline, Alaska Air. James, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it, and I absolutely love hearing that Alaska is your favorite airline. So you've already got me right there.
Yeah, I'm a Northwest guy, so it's right in my backyard there in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
But take us back to the roots of Alaska Airlines and how that may incorporate with DEI or just the overall culture there.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I've only been with Alaska for 7 months. But one of the reasons that I came to Alaska was just because of this culture of taking care of people and caring for people. And I always found that as a guest or as a customer of Alaska, it was always just this airline that I just got a really great experience on. So our roots are in the state of Alaska. And as an airline, we really got a name in Alaska because we are probably the only airline that does a lot of the routes into some of the cities and communities in Alaska, taking whether it's food and supplies or medical supplies or things like that. We're one of the few airlines that does transport of those things into those Native Alaskan communities, and so we've really built this reputation of just being kind of a hometown airline in Alaska. And from that, we've obviously expanded into the Pacific Northwest and on the West Coast and in Seattle and Portland, and then now an airline that services a host of different cities across the country and as well as Mexico and Canada.
So what's the business case for that when someone hears that on the outside, not knowing much about the Alaskan population, the communities within it? Do you see a sense of attachment for an airline that does something like that? The Northwest people, kind of rugged people, they get the harsh conditions of the weather, the cold, the rain, the wetness. What is it about DEI that people respect, and how does that translate for business results?
Yeah, well, I always say that, this work is about people, and everything we do is about people. And that's not just the airline industry, that's every industry. And so you're either dealing with employees or you're dealing with guests, and you're dealing with different types of people. And so the business case for it is the more that you can find a way to make sure that all of those different people from all those different backgrounds, cultures, languages, races, generations, ages, etc., feel included and a part of something, the better they can help give service to your guests, to your customers, but also create an experience that's inclusive for them. So this is about people first and foremost, and everybody's in the business of people.
When it comes to the decision makers then within Alaska Airlines, what are you doing to provide them with different perspectives for how they make these big decisions, especially in such a crucial time right now for the airline industry?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kevin. And when I think of the airline industry, you think about just we're one of the most diverse industries I think out there. If you think about who's flying on our planes every day, the cities that we are flying to, it's all about diversity. And so my role as a practitioner, I think, is to really help the organization understand what are those unique and different perspectives that are out there? Who are the customers and guests and communities that we're servicing? What are the things that are important to them? What are the things that we need to be doing as an airline to do what we say? We want to build an airline that people love. And in order to build an airline that people love, it means that we have to cater to a lot of different people. And that means that we have to think differently about our business practices, our policies, our products, everything from our onboard movies to our food to all of those different things, to who we hire to work in our organization and their ability to speak languages or connect with people. So I think my role is to be that consultant, is to be that person that helps kind of bridge the gap with our leaders in our business and helping them understand what are those unique challenges that are out there in some of these different communities and different groups.
Obviously, this was a weird year, or weird 2 years for the airline industry.
Yeah.
You saw some things that happened on airlines that were unexpected and that you can't really plan for. No training could train and prepare someone for some of the reactions that have occurred on airlines. What is your approach now to mitigate situations like the ones I'm inferring that you probably could think of?
Yeah, this last year and a half, 2 years has just been, you're right, there's no manual.
Yeah.
There's no manual for hey, how do you manage through a pandemic when you are trying to keep people safe from a health perspective, but then also care for people and make them feel special, given everything that's happening. And so the challenge for us, it's been challenging too for a lot of our employees and our flight attendants, because in some ways, you've had kind of the mask mandate and things, and our flight attendants in many ways have had to be the mask police, which hasn't been a very fun thing. But I think at the core of it is just recognizing that these are hard times for everybody, and given the circumstances, how can we just try and make the small moment from when people fly with us and they're on our airline just be a moment where they can maybe let go and maybe forget about all the other things that are happening in the world that many of us probably want to forget, and just make it feel like they truly are that the only person on that airline, and they feel special. I think that's what we've been trying to do, but it's been challenging for sure.
There's no doubt about it. But what about your workers as well? Obviously, you just touched on that aspect. What about from the hiring perspective?
Yeah.
For DEI, what are your thoughts on that? What changes are you trying to implement at Alaska Airlines?
Yeah, I think we came out earlier this year with some pretty bold commitments that we made as an organization, that we wanted to achieve some things by 2025 in terms of DEI goals, and those are really broken up into 3 areas. The first was that we want to make sure that our leadership is representative of our frontline employees, that the diversity of our frontline employees matches our leadership, that we are building a brand where we're using our voice and our scale as a company to come out and talk about things that are important to us and that matter to our guests and communities that we do business with. And then also, how do we also make sure that we are creating a culture of belonging in the organization with our employees? So how are we increasing our engagement surveys through hopefully instituting more inclusive business practices? So in terms of hiring, we just want to represent the diversity of the guests that are flying on our planes, and we know that those guests look like a lot of different people. They come from a lot of different backgrounds. They have a lot of different professional experiences and personal experiences, and so we just want to make sure that we've got employees that are representative of those different demographics. And so when we're looking for talent, we're looking for great talent that lives our values, that can be kind-hearted, that can do the right thing, that can own safety, and give remarkable service, but that also represent the many diverse communities that are out there.
What is it about seeing someone that looks like you, that you can see in themselves, that makes a difference for recruiting, for working, for the vision, for your own destiny? I mean, what is your approach, I guess, to continue this hiring process to make sure that everyone else can see themselves in a role like this, whether you're a captain or someone working in the back or cleaning the airplane?
Representation is important. I mean, all of us, I think at some point, whether you were a child, even as an adult, you probably saw somebody that you felt like in some way represented who you were, or qualities or things that were closely related to things about yourself, and you thought, man, maybe if that person can do it, maybe I can do it, or you saw somebody in a position and you thought, maybe I can do that same thing. And so I don't think it's any different when we think about from a diversity perspective. Representation is important, because I'll use pilots as an example. Pilots is a role in the airline industry where there's going to be a shortage of pilots in the next few years. That role has historically been a very white male occupied role. And so for an individual that maybe doesn't fit that profile to see someone that looks like them in a pilot position, they might look and say, wow, I had never considered that as a career or thought that that was something that I could do. But now, because I've seen that person, hey, I want to know more about how can I do that and what are the ways that maybe I can go about being a pilot, and maybe they see themselves as being a pilot as a result of that. So, we want to make sure that we're representing different groups and people because, again, it's representative of the different communities we do business with, but then also it's just good for our business to make sure that we've got a representation of just different people that bring different perspectives, different viewpoints, and can really help us innovate as an airline and think differently about what and how we do things.
James, one thing I've noticed among large companies is when they do something bold, whether it's plant-based meat in a fast food restaurant or something like that, the competitors seem to follow along. So this is an industry goal, I'm sure, of yours. Are you collaborating with other airlines? Or I know American is obviously the parent now. It's like,
Yep.
How does the industry need to change and work together to encourage people of other ethnic backgrounds to become pilots one day and pursue challenging careers that have historically been, one-sided?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think, and again, I'll use the pilot shortage as an example. The challenges in the airline industry around pilots is not just singular to Alaska. It's something that all airlines will have to be faced with, and we're all competing for the same talent, to be quite honest with you. And so I think we do work together in the sense that we're all trying to figure out how can we help solve the problem. So from an access perspective, from working with lawmakers in DC and creating laws that help with funding in underserved or underrepresented communities, working with schools to make sure that there are more pilot programs and there's more access in those programs for marginalized and underrepresented communities. So I think as an industry, I think we're all working towards the same thing because I think we all know that at some point we're going to all need pilots, because the reality is if we don't have pilots, then we don't fly planes. Customers can't get from point A to point B. And so I think we're all working in different ways to help address it, whether it's financial contribution, whether it's, again, partnering with organizations and lawmakers in DC to figure out how can we systemically help create access. So I think we're all working in some way together and working around that.
It's just a question popped in my head. I was listening to a speech the other day, and they were talking about the difference between looking at demographics and understanding people. Mm-hmm. And marketers tend to look at demographics, ethnic background, age, gender, location, purchasing habits. How do you, when it comes to the messaging, look at demographics or people? Like, that's a tough thing to balance when it comes to marketing, the communications you're getting out there. How do you at Alaska kind of view that perspective?
I think that's why you have to have those people at the table. I think that's why you have to have those people in the conversations. I always tell people I have a really unique perspective as a black male, but I certainly can't speak for the whole black race, and I certainly can't speak for other demographics. Even on my best day, I can try to imagine and think about what I think they would say, Kevin, but unless I have those individuals and people to help me understand and bridge that gap, whether it's culturally, language, what things I should be saying, what things I shouldn't be saying, that's really where I'm going to get my best bang for my buck is having those people at the table. So what I would say is, we're really trying to approach it as, hey, asking ourselves the question of, hey, this feels really good to me, but whose perspective are we missing? Who's not at the table? And then how do we go out and seek to get that perspective so that we can make sure that we're really making a decision that's inclusive of the viewpoints that potentially we don't have.
Amazing. I think that was kind of the premise of what this lady was saying in her conversation. It makes sense why y'all are thinking that way at Alaska Airlines. It's a very difficult topic to really implement.
It is.
So I guess someone like you, but I want to ask you a question about a demographic that is voiceless, someone that cannot speak. Speaking about pets, James. You just took away, bringing away dogs, not you specifically, the industry, not allowing pets on the plane unless you're a service animal.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, Kevin, I think you probably have a lot of viewpoints no matter who you talk with on the side of pets. I mean, I've had pets, and you know, my pets have for many years been like kids to me, and I do anything for them. And so I'm sure you talk to people that would say, I want my pet with me. You know, I think it's for us, it's just trying to strike that healthy balance of, you know, again, taking care of our customers and making sure that we're trying to obviously recognize that some pets on board we do need to think about and be mindful of in terms of service animals and things. And then in other cases, you know, if they're not providing a service, then, you know, how can we also, you know, try to acknowledge the customer population where maybe that's a little bit more challenging or a struggle for them. So it's a challenging and difficult question, one that I don't have a great answer for you on, because I've been on both sides of understanding, like, my pet is my baby and I want to go everywhere with them, and then, you know, also understanding that, you know, we're also trying to run a business also where we're trying to take care of everybody.
Wonderful. Well, James, just want to throw that question in because we've got a pet at home. We just want to make sure that he gets from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Now you're making me pay for a dog watcher to watch him over the weekend. I mean, it's just, I'm kidding. Anyway, James, appreciate you coming on this show. Wanted to bring that example in DEI. Loved your perspective today here on the Real Leaders Podcast. Let's bring this home. What is your definition of a real leader?
Oh, wow. You know, there's so many different types of leaders, but, you know, the leaders that I feel like I've always been inspired by are the leaders that aren't afraid to be challenged and have people around them who maybe know more than they do, or they feel are smarter than they are, or bring viewpoints to them that, you know, maybe they hadn't thought about. But also a leader who's not afraid to just kind of give up control, kind of let you kind of spread your wings and kind of fly, but also but be there to empower you and support you when you need it, but also be able to give you the space to kind of let you kind of soar and do what you need to do to get the job done. I think some of the best leaders are able also to not feel like they have to be the owners of everything, that they have to get the credit for everything, that they're willing to say, hey, you know what, I trust you, I believe in you, and I trust you to make the right decision, and let me know if you need some help or you need my support on something, but, you know, I'm going to let you go. Those are the leaders that I've always found that I've really enjoyed working for, because they really do, they push me, don't get me wrong, they don't give me full carte blanche to just do anything, they challenge me. They push me, but they give me enough space to do what I need to do, and sometimes screw up, make a mistake, but I know that they're always there to back me up and support me when I need it.
Well said, James. James Thomas, I'm Kevin Edwards, asking you to go out there, empower other leaders, and always, folks, keep it real. Thanks, James. Appreciate you.